Good morning. Good morning, family. It's good to be back and share with you this morning. As I was preparing for the testimony, Psalm 121 has been deeply resonating in me. As you know, Psalm 121 is a song of ascents. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come from? Verses 1 and 2 use the first person I as the subject, while verses 3 to 8 shifts to the second person, you. As I was preparing and looking back last year and last 10 years of my journey, since I was 18 to now, I'm 28 now, I was reminded of how faithful God has been to me, providing me and literally being my help through many ways. Looking back, so first outreach that I went to was in Nepal. It's during the strike that was happening between India and Nepal. So we were, the team leaders were discerning from the Lord if it is safe to go or not. So when we went there, we only had like 1 or 2 hot showers because of the gas strike. So we always had cold water shower or wash ourselves in a lake. In November it was pretty cold, the water coming down from Himalayas, but God has been faithful, always keeping us safe. And then my second outreach was to Egypt, which was right after the bombing of churches by Muslim extremists, Islam extremists. So then the leaders were discerning once again if it is safe to go or not. And we decided to go. And we went, and God has been faithful, keeping us safe. Actually, it was the safest time in Egypt because there were more police officers and soldiers on the streets for us. And then we went to Togo. I think I got it mixed up. Togo first, then Egypt. But Togo, we had 2 punctured tires. So we were running like 80k per hour, and suddenly we hear boom, and one of our tires it actually exploded. But because we had like 50 people on a small van and a lot of carriages, so we didn't actually flip. But that happened twice. Later, the bus driver, the minivan driver, told us, I got to believe in God more because of how God has protected you guys. Because he thought we would be dead when that happened. And third time was when I went to Kenya. Oh, it was terrible. So they didn't tell me before. I think I shared this with you guys before, but when I went there, they told me we'll be going into the desert area. I'm like, that's cool, but they're like, we need to pray hard. Why? Because last time when they went to the desert, they hit one of the goats of the chief of the village, and the desert area, the common law of the modern days don't apply. So the goat, to compensate that, we had to give one of the members' lives for it. You know, like in Kenya, desert areas, they fight and they have war between the tribes because of a goat or stolen cattle. Because, you know, they're not like Australia, they would have like a fence around, but they would have like a little stamp on there or a seal on the cattle, and if the neighborhood or neighbor tries to steal it, that's how the war starts. And it's a real problem in churches as well, because the pastors sometimes go with the tribes to the war in killing people. So has been a little drama, fascists, and the pastors are trying to help, and the missionaries trying to help with those tribes to say what the pastors should do when the war breaks out. It's like a real practical stuff happening in Kenya as well, and also nearby countries. And I was too young when I was 18 or 19, 20. Didn't feel that much of fear, or I was not afraid of those things happening. Like, yeah, live for Christ and die for Christ, but thinking back now, being 28, well, still I had that heart, live for Christ, die for Christ, but I couldn't thank enough for how God has been protecting me and really helping me in times of, danger. Yeah, that's the word. And also the food. Amount of times I think God has been protecting myself and the team from food poisoning and diarrhea. Well, we had diarrheas, a lot of diarrheas, but it wasn't as bad as it should have been. So let me go back to Psalm 121. Verse, because Psalm 121 is used in first person and second person, some people suggest that it has been a dialogue style song between parents and children on their pilgrimage, on their way to Jerusalem to sacrifice to the Lord. And while others view it as an antiphonal song between pilgrims and priests. So pilgrims would say I, and the priests would reply their song in you, God will bless you. So if we consider it as an antiphonal song, an exchange between pilgrims and priests, we can understand verses 1 and 2 as pilgrims having the monologue, and priests answering their monologue in blessing, like the number 6, Aaron's blessing. The blessing states in number 6, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord makes his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And there's another interpretation. It relates to the high places built on the mountains, the shrines of the pagan gods. Ancient peoples believed that gods dwelt in the mountains, leading them to building high places, shrines on mountaintops, where they would offer sacrifices. And they would worship these foreign gods lustfully, seeking protection, wealth, and fertility. So we can have these three views. So parents and kids on their way to Jerusalem, saying to each other, where does my help come from? And parents would answer, your help comes from the Lord. And also, the pilgrim would say, where does my help come from? And the priest would bless them and say, God will bless you and he will be your help. And if we move to the third part, it will be a pilgrim saying, where does my help come from? As they go through the valleys and the hills and seeing those high places on mountains on their way to Jerusalem. So they'll be thinking, where does my help come from? And they will see those pagan gods' shrines where people would worship idols. And they would say to themselves, my help comes from the Lord, not those pagan gods. My prosperity, my protection, my stability, and this country's protection doesn't come from those pagan gods, but it comes from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. And they might say, those pagan gods won't help me, but my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and the earth, and who made a covenant with me. People serve pagan gods because they believe they will bring protection. Same today, if I bring that to my context, the modern day context, it will be like, where does my money come from? Where does the sense of security, belonging, and comfortable retirement come from? And I'll be seeing those high rises in Korea because I worked at a cafe in the financial district of Korea. They call it the Manhattan, New York of Korea, the Wall Street. And I'll be looking at those high rises saying, where does my health come from? And God would always whisper in my heart and say, it comes from me. And God has been reminding me last year as I was away from ministry and working at a cafe. I still think that's a ministry, living a daily life as Christian in the secular world, but God has been keep highlighting to me, you can still live the same as you were doing the ministry. as a Christian. Be the salt and the light. But it was a challenge. It really was a challenge. It was different from doing ministries. In ministry, we would have worship every day or intercession every day. So it was easier to keep my faith and grow my faith collectively. But being alone was a little difficult. Well, it was really difficult compared to when I was in the ministry. But I could sense and feel God leading me and telling me about what I should do and what He wants me to do in the future. Being in a Christian family, pastor's family, ministry always has been a, I don't know how to say, like default setting in my life. Priority. Never thought anything else than ministry. But being away from the ministry, I got to realize a bit more that how thankful I should have been, or how much of a privilege it has been to have parents who are pastors and this lovely church that I grew up with, and also the ministries. And I could feel that God placed me in a ministry or different ministries, not just because for the people around me, but it's also for me as well, always to have my eyes on the Lord and fixing my eyes on the Lord. So at the end of the I could feel God asking me this question. So now what do you want to do in the future? What do you think? Do you still don't want to go back to ministry, or what do you want to do to me? And I said to the Lord, if you want me in the world working and serving people through the finance you have given me, I would love to do that. But if you give me a choice, I would love to follow wherever you call me. If it's the nations that never heard the gospel, I would love to go. If it's Sydney to my parents, to this church, to Glenorie Community Church, I would love to go. But Lord, wherever you want me to go, I would love to go, because I know now, because what you have for me, the help you give me is the best help that I can receive, and it's the best life that I can live. People might say, my friends sometimes say it's boring to follow God sometimes, but I would tell my friends, no, it's the most exciting and thrilling way to live for God. You can't feel that joy and that sense of contentment elsewhere. As the days go by, I can really tell that God is good and has been gracious to me. I have a friend who was my student back in Lausanne. He's a scientist, AI scientist. So how his brain works is very different from mine and most of the people. He's saying, do you really think God is good? He's away from faith now, but do you really think God is good? Is He really good? If He's good, why is all this and that happening in life? Yes. And I would tell him, and he's like, I am sick of people saying, just believe in God and experience Him. I am sick of that. That's what he said. And I told him, well, I know that frustrates you, but I think that's the only answer that I can give you. Also, know Him and experience Him, then most of your questions will be answered. Yes, we have questions in lives as Christians too. Yes, sometimes we fall too as Christians, but His goodness and His grace always catches us and leads us. It might sound irresponsible, but for you, I will pray every day so that you will know that God is reaching out to you more and more each day. As you see those high rises, as you see those AI codes, you will know that there is someone behind your life, leading your life and guiding your life. And I shared Psalm 121 with him. You will see those troubles in the world, but you will know your help will come from the Lord, as mine has come from the Lord. So that has been my last 1 year plus last 10 years summary. And for my next step, I've been praying and decided 3 days ago that I would go back to Switzerland for 3 months to help with translation from Korean to English or English to Korean for Koreans coming to Switzerland to learn more about Jesus. And last year I got to know more. The thing that thrills me the most is when I answer or when I help people to know more about God and to know more about Jesus and to help them to follow Him more day by day. And as I was learning about missions last year, I had a little hope and desire in my heart, which was during our time learning about missions, one of the speakers showed us figure of numbers, saying, these are the numbers of those who died for Christ in 20th century. He said, people say faith doesn't matter anymore, Christianity is dying, but the interesting thing was there were more martyrs, more people dying for Christ in 20th century than any other centuries. So I was thinking, Lord, if you let me, my desire would be, I will be in that number in 21st century for those who died for you. That was my desire, and I shared that with my mom, and my mom said, if it's the Lord, yes, but to think about you going into those Islamic nations, mom is a bit worried, but I said, well, if it's the Lord leading me, there will be nothing stopping me. So and through this opportunity, I want to say thank you to all of you for praying for me. As I said, the Lord has He has been helping me and guiding me, but each time I see His hands and outstretched arm helping me, I could feel your prayers for me and your blessings for me. Thank you so much.